of speakers. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, Mr. Chair, my apologies. I can't be able to switch on my camera as I'm having some technical problems here. But however, I'll deliver what you have asked me to do. Through your permission, Chairperson, let me go straight to the introduction of our beloved guest, the very important guest for today, who will be leading the topic. The topic that we've been envisaging as the CYM members, communities at large, the URCSA family at large. Yeah, I think we are going to enjoy this topic. Firstly, let me introduce the moderator of the session, Ntate Moruti Bookholane. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me go straight to the introduction of Reverend Thabang Bookholane. Reverend Thabang Bookholane was born and raised in Mokwalo, Vredefort in the Free State Province, where he matriculated. He obtained the following qualifications. He has the certificate in humanities, specializing in sociology and communication sciences from the University of the Free State, the bachelor degree of divinity from the UFS, master's degree in theology, specializing in religion studies from UFS, Bachelor of Arts honors, specializing in African language, Sesotho linguistics, University of Free State, postgraduate certificate in education, University of South Africa, and lastly, he's currently enrolled for PhD, post-PhD in Old Testament at University of the Free State. Reverend Thabang Bookholane, he's the former chairperson and deputy chairperson of the CYM URCSA Vredefort from the period between 2013 and 2016. He is the former secretary of the CYM Hillbron Presbytery from the period 2016 to 2018. He also served as the former secretary of Kronstadt Presbytery PUE from the period 2019 to 2022. He served as a guest, as a student representative in the Free State, Lesotho and Pro Ministerial Formation Task Team, that is MFTT, from 2019 to 2022. He also served on the Faculty Student Council at the Faculty of Theology and Religion at the University of Free State from the period 2019 to 2021. He's currently an ordained minister of the Word at URCSA Free State Lesotho Regional Synod, and he's serving the following congregation in Bethuli Presbytery, URCSA Bethuli, Forest Smithfield, and Tromsberg. He's currently the scribe of the Free State and Lesotho Regional Synod. Lastly, he's currently serving on the joint MFTT of the Free State, Lesotho, and Poro region. That is the conclusion of our bio of Reverend Bookholane. I'll now then move to our guest, Reverend Maponya. Reverend Maponya, Moruti Moshe S. Maponya is the minister of the United Reformed Church in Southern Africa, Polokwane City Congregation. He was born and raised in Mamelodi, where he did his theological education or theological studies at the University of Pretoria. He's been serving as the Minister of Word and serving the sacraments to the congregation of this Polokwane City congregation from July 2007 to date. Lastly, Reverend Moshe S. Maponya, he is married to Mrs. Matobela Maponya, and they are blessed with two beautiful sons, Mohau and Lerego. Mulasulu, let me take this opportunity to welcome our dear ministers of Word. We hope that they will take us through the topic that has been placed before us. We hope that we're gonna learn a lot from them. Reverends, I would therefore welcome you to our sixth ecumenical conversation. We hope that we're gonna enjoy. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Pule. Thank you for introducing our guest. And the conversation that we are having tonight, it's one of those conversations that the church must start having. I know previously in the Northern and Southern Synod, there's a serious concern of NTS actually. The intake, it's not as good as before, or rather I would say even students that are there on a full-time basis are not as many, and eventually that might compromise the quality of ministers that we will be producing. But also we are aware of the vacancies in terms of the report submitted by the General Synod in 2022 in Stellenbosch, that there are many vacancies in congregations. And as when we continue, the demand and supply curve, it's not balancing. And if these issues are not addressed, we might find ourselves in a crisis, because the church primarily depends on ministers of the word. Now, Mruti Maponya and Mruti Bookholane, what you're just going to take us through that, but you will learn that our conversations are not scripted in a way that we allow both the moderator and the guest to really expand outside the scope that we submitted to them. But part of it, and our main objective, is for us to identify and reflect on the reasons behind this decline in youth, young people pursuing theological studies and ministries, and also to explore what might be the root cause. We want to find a diagnosis in terms of why are our seminaries not capacitated, especially by young people. We have seen the trend of the Northern Synod and Southern Synod, and also the Namibian Synod over the year, that most of the registrations are for students that are over the age of 40. And we don't have a problem with that, but we are saying that CYM, it's known to be a ministry that really produces ministers. And again, we just want to touch on a very sensitive topic, and maybe Mruti Maponya and Mruti Bookholane will go into it to check if really ministry is still a calling, or it's now perceived as a means of employment. We believe that they are going to take us through this important conversation, and I take this opportunity to officially welcome members of the meeting and also our guest and moderator, and hand over this program to them. Mruti Thabang, the floor is yours, my brother. Thank you. Mruti Maponya, you can just also come to the screen so that you put on your camera, and the technical team will pin the both of you to the screen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to you and all the CYM community in all regions. And my apology, we are having a load shedding this site. Let me take this opportunity to also thank the Central Executive Committee of the CYM for the invitation to participate in discussing this important topic in celebrating the 30th of the CYM. And we can all agree that we are reminded that the future of our church depends on how we invest in the next generation today. Therefore, the recruitment of youth into theology ministry is not just a strategic move, it is also a sacred responsibility. So as we reflect on the journey of the CYM today in this conversation, we can ask this question of who will carry the torch of proclamation, service, and pastoral care into the decades to come, looking at the numbers of our ministers, and also decline in terms of people who are entering into the ministry. Since we all know that we have different generations in our church of in ministers, and all of them, we can agree that their time will come to an end. And also now what's going to happen going forward, because it does not mean that when the generation that we are having now going to retirement, that the church must be in need of ministers. While we have the university in our church, as the CYM, full of talented young people who can be leaders of our church and take the church to the next level. So on behalf of the church also, I want to thank the CYM for having this topic, because it is very important, and it is one of the topic that the GS is also busy with in all the regions to address and engage on the shortage and also the decline, and how we can recruit young people into ministry. As we always say that CYM, it is the university of the church, and we can all agree, and indeed it is the university, and CYM played and also continue playing an important role in the ministry of the church and in the lives of members of URCSA. And we must not take that for granted, because without CYM, there is no CWM, CMM, and CYM, and also there is no church council and future ministers. And in these 30 years of CYM, we are proud that CYM did produce leaders and ministers. If you can check at or look at the young or new ministers in service now, they are the graduates of CYM, including myself also, of which CYM must be proud of that when celebrating the 30 years. So, colleagues now, and also Moruti Maponya, I'm inviting everyone now to engage openly and faithfully as we explore how can the church recruit, inspire, and support a new wave of leaders who will serve URCSA. As I have highlighted, that 30 years of CYM did produce ministers. But Moruti Maponya, Intelligence and Matata, even today, when we check the numbers, the shortage of ministers in all the regions, if you can check the statistics, we can see that in the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to be in trouble in all regions. And especially if we can look in our region now, for example, Free State and Lesotho, we have 96 congregations with 33 ministers, of which 12 of them in the next coming 5 years, they are going to retire. So, and looking at the number of students at the university now, here in Free State at UFS, we only have 2 first-year students for 2025, of which it is a great concern in terms of going forward, what's going to happen, looking at the vacancies and looking at the number of students who are coming. And that is why it is important, and thanking the CYM to touch on this topic, trying to address this issue, because we don't see a lot of young people answering to a call or show the interest of wanting to study to become ministers of this church. And so Ref, the question that one might ask is, how can the church recruit young people to theological studies? Because now, as the church, we have witnessed a decline in number of young people pursuing theological studies and entering the ministry. And I think This trend urges us to critically examine the underlying reasons, the ranging from socio-economic factors and changing cultural perceptions to the church internal dynamics. And it's also important, Rev, when discussing this recruitment and the decline, we must also highlight and taking into consideration the requirements of the church when one wants to become a minister, because our church, unfortunately, we cannot just recruit, and after recruiting, what's going to happen with the people or the students or the youth that we have recruited, because now they have to go to school, to university, and there are requirements. And also the processes of one, if one wants to study, what are the processes?
Moruti Maponya, you are on mute.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Reverend Bookholane. Can you hear me now, colleagues?
Yes.
Yakwahala. Tamakosh. Brothers and sisters in Christ, allow me this evening to send my heartily greetings to you all, the Christian Youth Ministry of this our beloved denomination, Uniting Reformed Church in Southern Africa. I assume that since the General Synod Executive Committee is the one that have arranged these particular sessions, it means all the Christian youth ministry of our denomination are represented or are invited to form part of these sessions, where we learn together about certain aspects of our church, but not only learning, knowing our responsibilities and how do we forge ahead as Christian youth ministry. But also, as the chairperson and Reverend Bookholane has indicated, CYM celebrating 30 years of its existence. But you'll know that due to historical issues, CYM is standing on the shoulders of the giants, where we come from when there was a merger in 1994 from the Dutch Reformed Mission Church and the Dutch Reformed Church in Africa with its youth, the MBB, you know, from the Dutch Reformed Church in Africa, but also from Dutch Reformed Mission Church, that merger. It means when CYM was established, it was standing on the soldiers, the shoulders of the giant. And I really want to wish you well for the past 30 years, but also looking forward to the years to come, in you being indeed the youth of Christ, or the youth for Christ and his church, and being able to do everything that is needed to show that you are really serving God, but also serving humanity. You know, like in my bio, they've mentioned that I've been a minister of the Word and Sacrament for 18 years now. For 18 years. And I'm from Mamelodi. I've spent the greater part of my life in Mamelodi, around Saltsville, Mamelodi, Harangua, like those were the places that I was familiar with. I did my practicals mostly at Irene congregation. Then in my ordination, 2007 at Lewakhomo, after spending those years, 7.5 years at Lewakhomo, coming to Polokwane City 2015. You know, sometimes when I go back home, in Mamelodi. I'm always happy to see young men and women that I didn't even know who are part of CYM, but also taking this role, this leadership role. And every time when I'm home and looking at these young men and women, like I know that our church has the future. I didn't want to single out my son, Thabiso Putani, one of the young men who makes me happy about the work that they are doing in CYM. So with that, I really want to thank the organizing committee, executive committee, everybody who's involved in these sessions. Thank you very much for allowing me and Reverend Bookholane this platform just to come and engage with you on the topic that you have requested us to work on. So when I was requested to be a guest, there were certain things that were highlighted to me. I'll be working within those parameters, but also including some that I think they can start the conversation moving forward. But with those issues that the way I was given, that I need to also reflect on them. That does not mean that I'm going to deliberately exclude other people who might want to raise certain issues that you think they are relevant to this topic, the recruitment of the youth to ministerial formation. And kindly note that I'm not coming to you because I'm a minister of the word and sacrament as if I'm coming from the position of power, but I'm coming to you as a fellow brother in Christ, a fellow Christians as you are, a believer in God, the one who loves Christ. Then I'm not an expert in all these things, but I believe that our interaction today is going to assist us in making sure that we start a conversation with the church. As the chairperson mentioned, but also Reverend Bookholane mentioned that this decline is really killing us as the church. And if nothing is going to happen in the near future, we'll end up having a denomination with no ministers of the word and sacrament. And we believe that a denomination should have ministers of the word and sacrament who should give guidance spiritually, but also offer spiritual support to members of the church. So the things that I'll be dealing or reflecting on, the first one, it will be the objective of recruiting youth to ministerial formation, the reason behind the decline in youth pursuing theological studies, I'll say theological studies, the root cause of the church diminishing capacity to produce sufficient ministers, critical strategies, and lastly is something that the chair requested: is ministry still a calling or a means of employment? Reverend Bookholane also indicated, how can the church recruit young people to ministerial formation? And he also highlighted other issues, which is church internal disputes, recruitment to become a ministerial student, but also the processes that are needed for one to become a student. But before I can go to all that I wanted to share with you, first allow me to say, when we read the Old Testament and the New Testament, we come to the realization that theological reflections has been an important part in those worlds, whether formally or informal. But when God uses his people, starting from the Old Testament, they've always been this theological reflection, because the people were engaging on what is it that God wants and what is it that they must live in pleasing God. Then we learn, especially when we read Joshua chapter 1, when after the passing of Moses, and then Mudimu was telling Joshua that like Moses, my servant, has passed, wake up or stand up and lead this nation. And he was saying many things until he come to a point when we say the book of the law. You must not depart from the book of the law, whether from the right or from the left. And he was simply saying, you need to study the law. You need to study this book. And immediately when we talk about studying, we talk about a reflection, because the law is the law of God. Then we are saying theological reflection, because Joshua was instructed to reflect critically and studying of the law of God. That was theology, because basically theology, if we have to define it in a very simplest term, theology, theo, God, logy, study or science. Then when we talk about theology, we talk about the study of the word of God. Even in the New Testament, when Jesus Christ ascended to heaven, he didn't leave any book written. The only time when we learn about Jesus Christ writing something, it was when they brought that woman who was, they claimed they caught her in the act of adultery, and they wanted Marna Jesu to make a verdict regarding that woman. And we were told that he kneeled down and just write something on the ground. But besides that, we don't have any proof that there is a book or something that he left behind. But he left about 11 men. And the instruction was that go to the world and preach the gospel, and teach them all that I've taught you. That by itself, it was an oral or informal training, because for the 3 years that they've spent with Jesus Christ, that's when he was informally teaching them of the things that they need to do when he has left this world. Then informally, so go and teach this to my people. Then, but with the rise of European universities, theology came to be called a mother of all sciences. Though now it's no longer the case, but theology is still considered a vital part of the Christian faith. Gonzalez is one of the people who reflected about this whole issue of theology, and one of the things that he indicated was that if we take the command to love God with all our minds seriously, theological reflection becomes an act of devotional obedience. So the church without theology or theological education is failing short of its calling. That is the ultimate responsibility for ministerial formation lies with denomination, not at university level. It should be the denomination that come up with ways of making sure that they teach or they instill this thing of the formation or doing this theological education. And the reason is simple, my dear colleagues. If people do not critically engage on ministerial formation or theological education, it leads to this paparazzi, we call them paparazzi pastors who just emerge from nowhere without any formal theological training, without any formal theological education. And at the end of the day, they become these people who will feed people snakes, make others to eat grass or drink petrol, or the doom pastors. And because of the gullibility of our people, they allow this to happen, because people are going through a lot. I normally hear some clips that CYM in your revivals. You'll never go to a revival and having a sermon preaching. I know the way you preach, at the CYM, but there is always this word that keep on coming. Remetswe. Then many people because of that, they take all these things that these paparazzi pastors come with, and they think that is the gospel. But in order for one to be able to preach the honest gospel, they really need to undergo the whole issue of theological education, because denomination need to make sure that theological education equip future leaders to serve in their local communities. That in theological education, that's when an individual get an opportunity to sit there and be able to be equipped so that they become faithful servants in the communities that they find themselves in. That is theological education. And if we need to talk about ministerial formation, colleagues, I'm just laying this foundation because the question or the theme of today's session is the recruitment of youth to theological education. Then before we can start recruiting youth to theological education, we need to understand what is theological education and what is ministerial formation. Hence, I was saying at the beginning, like the whole issue of the purpose of theological education in equipping individuals to become future leaders to serve their local communities. But when we need to talk about ministerial formation, we refer to the formalized training process each denomination provide for their ministers in preparation for ordination. Theological education is basically something that is done in academia, where you do philosophy of theology or Old and New Testament theology, your science of religion, your missiology, your practical theology, your systematic theology with dogmatic and ethics. But then the church has also the responsibility where it formalizes a training process providing their ministers in preparation for ordination. Because we understand that different denominations have different understanding of how their church operates. Then it is the role of a denomination to come up with ways of how are we coming up with the process for the ministerial formation of URCSA. If you go to UP has different partner churches which form part of Ecumenical Advisory Board. Then the students who are studying at UP, whether they are coming from Uniting or Dutch Reformed Church or Hervormerde or any other Presbyterian, Lutheran, whatever, they have a day in a week where the focus is about the church and its formation, how they form their ministry student to become the people that they want them to be. Then ministerial formation is a structured process that includes theological education, mentorship, and practical experiences to prepare candidates for leadership role within their faith communities. It is a process, and that process is structured, and it includes many things like mentorship, practical experience. Hence, with us, when we accept you to become a ministry student of URCSA, we say each and every year you are going to be evaluated on 3 points. The first one is academic insight. We want to see that what we have registered at university, are you progressing well on those academically so? And we also evaluate you on ministry practicals. Each year, a student is required to do 100 hours of ministry practicals of your studies. And the last one, it has to do with your role as an example, like your issues that have to do with your conduct. We evaluate you if we can see that you are still that person who's living the life of being called. The candidate needs to acquire knowledge. That's what we believe in both academic and ecclesial circle, and develop an application of this through the interaction with their context. That's what we believe in, that the church needs to have a ministry formation center, or must ask people to pursue their theological training in order for them to be able to acquire that knowledge, both academically and ecclesial, that will assist you in how you interact with your personal context. Then, colleagues, with that, I was just laying a foundation of saying, if we need to talk about the issue called how do we recruit the youth to ministerial formation or to theological training, we need first engage critically on what do we mean by theology, but also what do we mean by ministerial formation, so that whoever is going to come into the system, they know what is it that is needed for what is required for them to be able to go to that particular route. But then, let me just go now straight to my point. Like the first one, I want to respond to the issue of recruit youth to ministerial formation, or something like that. We are talking more about the youth to ministerial formation, but we need to be clear that not only the youth do pursue the theological training. We do have people who are above 40, because according to our system, a person is a youth between a certain age, 18 to 36. Then when you are above 36, you are no longer considered to be a youth. But we have in the past accepted people who were above 40, some above 50, some above 55. And the reason behind, the objective behind the recruitment of the young people to ministerial formation, not to say those who are above 40 and above are not important. They are important. But sometimes it becomes a challenge where a person at the age of 55 realize that they have a call, and we don't question that, and they come to do they register to become theological student. And our church says if a person is above 40 and you have you have already a degree in other field, then we do something that is called recognition of prior learning. You are above 40, you have been serving in the church in different aspects, being a leader in the church, doing this and this, and you have a degree from other field. Then we do recognition of prior learning with a portfolio of evidence, and then that's where you are going to register the last 10 modules of theology of the first degree, the last 10 modules as a non-degree purpose. Then after acquiring those 10 last, or the third year, the 10 third year modules, then you are now going to do your BTH honors, practical theology or whatever discipline. Then after that, you go and do your masters in theology. Then if a person is 55 years and you still have other work and you have a family, you come to we are accepted at 55, then you must do all those things. And let me tell you something, my dear colleagues, don't just take for granted that if you register for theology, they're going to ask you the questions, who is Jesus' mother there? We don't do those things. We don't, there we do like the theology of the Old Testament and the theology of the New Testament. We do a science of religion. And that's where you get into details, and some of the modules, like any other qualifications, you can fail modules. Then at 55, you come, you do the last 10. You cannot, UNISA does not allow one to do 10 in 1 year. They can't allow you. Then 55, you do 5, 56, you do another 5. And in between 2 or 3 modules, do Shabaka Matric 1. Then you end up doing the last 10 modules in 3 years. Now you are 57. Then you do your honors. The honors at UNISA is 18 months, or something like that. Then now you're 59, you do the masters, you end up completing at the age of 62. Upon your licensing, you have 3 years, because our church says a minister of the word may require at 60, but it is compulsory for a minister of the word to require at 65. Then you only have 3 years to serve the church as an active administrative minister of the word and sacrament. After 65, you get your emeritus status. You must make a way for another minister to come in there. Then the church has spent, or the church has utilized its time, money, and energy to invest in a person that is not going to work for the church for a very long time. It's only a period of 5 years or 6 years, a person being a minister of the word and sacrament. Because after 65, you are no longer a permanent member of the church council, the presbytery, the synod. You can come to the synod as an observer. But you went through all this trouble of becoming a minister of the word. Then if we are saying the objective of recruiting young to ministerial formation, firstly, we talk about sustaining leadership. Recruiting young people help maintaining a steady pipeline of future leaders who can guide congregation and uphold religious tradition. Like a person who becomes a minister at a very young age, their time frame. I'm not God. I can't say somebody cannot die, whatever, before they reach 65. But if somebody will reach 65, their time of saving the church is going to be long, because they will be there for quite some time, leading the church, working within the church, like understanding the dynamics, what is happening, but also paving way out. How can the church be assisted as we move forward? Like in my case, when I was ordained when I was 27 years old, and today I've served the church for 18 years, and I still have another 20 years to work in the church. And in these 18 years, I've been given different roles. Also the principal of the Northern Theological Seminar. I'm working at UNIS as a lecturer. I'm there trying to see how can we work. Then it is an advantage of recruiting young people to ministerial formation, because it helps to sustain like this whole issue of like the pipeline, the future leaders who will be in the system for quite some time. But again, we talk about spiritual growth. Early ministerial formation allows youth to deepen their faith, develop theological understanding, and cultivating a strong moral foundation. When you are doing your theological education at the early stage, and I'm not saying those who are doing it at the latter stage, there is a disadvantage for them. Because if I'm doing my theological education at an early stage, it allows me time to critically reflect on matters as I move on, as I'm engaging with my context, as I'm doing whatever I need to do. And hence, we really wish that many young people can be, or they can come for ministerial formation, because by so doing, it will also assist the church to have ministers who will serve the church for a very longer time, but also who will deepen their faith, but develop their theological understanding and cultivating a strong moral foundation. But also, young people, bring fresh perspectives and energy, helping churches to connect with the young. Like when young ministers come. Some month ago, I was attending an ordination of one of the proponent who got a call somewhere in Berger Presbytery, and that proponent requested that I come and preach in that session. And after in the service, whatever, there was a time I was just tired. Like I had a conference for the week, and then I was just tired. I was sitting down when people were dancing, whatever. And this old man came to me, like we start chatting and say, you know, when I look at this young man, and he's a theological student, he reminds me of you when you start coming to the presbytery of Berger. You were so energetic, and people used to love you. When you come to services, whatever, like we want to come there. But then now, I can hear even dancing. Is just stress. But young people, they still have energy, and they bring fresh perspective that makes the church to connect with the young people into the church. That's one of the objectives why we wish to recruit young people to minister. But then, if we need to talk about the issues of the decline of youth to ministerial formation, I think one of the things that we need to refer to is the changing cultural and social norms. You know, like we are living in a context where some younger generation people often have different perspective on religion and spirituality, and they that lead to the decreased interest in traditional ministerial role. Like many young people, they have this mentality about the whole issue of religion and spirituality, and it's because of like the world view that we are living in. I can tell you some 30 years or even 40 years ago, you will be told that if you need employment, you need to get a letter from your minister that you are a member of a particular congregation. And that system compelled many to be part of a certain faith-based community. And being part of that faith-based community, automatically it makes you to be interested in what is happening within this the system. And that's when some of the people decided to go to ministerial formation, because the world view that time, it was limiting. There were no many avenues that we have today that young people can have entertainment as they want, for the time they want. But then, you know, like things were limited. But now, because of this changing landscape of the world, you know, like the world is taking another direction. That's where it makes the young people to make decisions. Like they just make decisions about like this is what I want this. I don't want to do something like this. I want to take something like this. And we see again the other thing of lack of engagement. Some churches struggle to create interactive and like participatory program that speaks to them to the youth. I know I'm going to be blamed for this, but I just need to be honest with you. You know, ever since I've been a minister, I've seen this challenge even when I'm leading a worship service on Sunday. When I'm preparing to lead the worship service, my worship service speaks to the elderly people, not to the children, not to the youth. And that's why sometimes the youth will come to worship service and don't participate and sit on their phones, or just sit there at the back there with their phones, because the worship service does not speak to them. And if the youth does not get a sort of like or do not resonate with what a faith-based community is all about, they won't be interested to go to the formation center. No, they won't be. They will rather go to things that makes them feel good about themselves. They'll choose careers that will make them know, I want to take this career, I'm taking this career because this one is good for me. But this lack of engagement, but also the generational gaps, difference in value and communication style between the older church leaders and younger members can create disconnect, discouraging youth from pursuing ministry. The older people, are the ones who knows the youth. You know nothing. You must listen to us. We are the one who must tell you how things need to go. Even if when we give the youth an opportunity to lead, we want to micromanage them because they are going, but then they don't be encouraged or have that thing of like standing up for themselves, trying to see how can things work for them. But again, we're looking at this thing of secularization of career path. Like many young people will make a priority, but like if I go to ministerial formation, and in the congregation that I'm in, I've heard that a minister is suffering. Even next month, there is a possibility that Muruti is not going to get a salary. And you want me to go for ministerial formation, then they will rather choose careers that they know that their life are going to be secured. Like after doing this particular degree, I know like if I can get a job, I'm set. It will be my mistake if I do something wrong and I don't know or I do something wrong which lead me for my demise in that particular position. But they look at this thing of a career path and they compare to what they are observing in the congregations that they are in. That no, I cannot do this thing of ministerial formation because there is no money otherwise on that path. And it's true because the Uniting Reformed Church in Southern Africa says for one to be able to be a minister of the word and sacrament, you must have masters in theology. And after acquiring masters in theology, you get or you are called by a congregation that cannot support you according to your qualifications. And this speaks to this whole issue of whether this thing is a calling or employment. And again, if it is employment or calling, but the issue of livelihood, we are living in a very rough world whereby every day things are going up and up. Ministers of the word and sacrament are men and women, they have families, they have children. Then if having master's degree, I get to a congregation that says, no, we can pay you 10,000 in these days. I'm married, I've got 2 children. What will I do with 10,000 as a person, as a husband? Then I will end up being depressed because my family will see me as the failure who cannot take care of my family because I'm getting a 10,000 in the congregation. Then some of the youth people they do this. They weigh. No. We are weighing this. If I get an opportunity of being a business person and getting this, but still be a member of the church, do whatever I needed, but not being a minister of the word, I'm set and good to go. Rather than being a minister of the word and sacrament with this kind of money that I'm getting, what about my livelihood? My children also want to go to the same school that some members of the congregation are going to. My children or my wife cannot always be on the receiving end. Every time because that's what we are getting. Hence, we'll see many ministers, they'll even want to become 10 makers so that they will be able to supplement what they are getting for their livelihood. Then majority of the young people, when they see all these things, they become scared and said, no, but if I go for ministerial formation and I end up getting this, how am I going to survive? But that is more on economics of this. Then, but when you look at the root cause of church diminishing capacity to produce sufficient ministers, like declining church attendance, like now many people, many people are no longer taking their Christian roles, especially the mainline churches. many people are not taking this thing very much serious. You know, they will opt to be in worship service whenever they want to be, and they will opt to give the offering if things are going okay. If a minister starts to say something that does not make them feel good about themselves, they also withheld their offering. They close the tab because a minister is saying something that we don't want to hear. But there is also limited mentorship and training. We don't see, like if there is somebody in the church who's coming out and that person, we see that there is a sense of calling in that person. We don't normally have other elderly people or ministers of that congregation holding that person with the hand and trying to nurture that young person for a calling. Because listen, a calling, you don't just wake up and say, I dreamt yesterday God was talking to me and he said I was going to become a minister. A calling is something that is nurtured, like you grow into the so-called your ministerial vocation. You grow into that, and there need to be people who will act as mentors, who will mentor young people so that they will be able to pursue the studies of ministerial formation. But also, the church needs to take into consideration what they are putting on the table. We need to go back and rework on how, like the roles of ministers, but also rework on how does the church like provide support for ministers' household that they can also live and be like other people. That is to assist and revive with this whole issue of recruitment of young people, because they'll be seeing that coming here is not in vain, because the church also is intentional about supporting the ministers of the word in God and be able to live their life. You can't be sitting on Saturday afternoon when you must finalize your worship service or whatever, but you are thinking that next week they are going to take the car because you didn't pay for 2 months. Then that's some of the challenges that arises. But the church need to make sure that they do something like that, like in making sure that they put whatever on the table to assist ministers of the word and those who are going to school. In other problems, we have leadership challenges where some churches struggle with ineffective leadership structure, making ministerial roles less appealing. You know, for the past 6 months, even in the congregation that I'm leading, we have not said anything about supporting ministerial formation. It came this week because on the 25th of May, we've allocated that Sunday to NTS because of my history with NTS, but also we call it NTS Day. A student will be coming to our congregation to lead the worship service, and they will be getting their traveling allowance, but also the Sunday collection of the day is dedicated to NTS. And after that, nothing more. We are not talking about it again. Then the church is not intentional. Hence, this ineffective leadership structure, because of leadership challenges, is making ministerial role less appealing. Because some of our congregation, we take long in talking about the ministerial formation. It is by the way. In the church council, if we must talk about ministerial formation, we are wasting time. It is by the way. There are 5 important things. We need to talk about the Then, as I'm going to concluding what my talk, strategies, mentorship and role model. We need to connect young people with inspiring ministers and faith leaders. There must be a mentorship. One of the things that will assist us in recruiting the young people, when we identify a young person, we must place a mentor, a role model to that young person, especially ministers of the word. That a minister so-and-so, here's the young person, we think that there is something in this person. Can you go and assist this person to grow their calling? Then mentorship and role model, engaging youth in church leadership, giving youth meaningful roles in worship, outreach, decision-making, foster a sense of belonging and purpose. We need to give the youth the chance so that they can see that they see themselves as leaders. And again, they can have this thing of trying to be appeased by the theological training. We need to be intentional about theological education. We need to speak about theological education, not only in meetings, but in most of our gatherings. When you are meeting in your presbytery, in your congregation conference, we also need to talk about theological education. That will stimulate this whole issue of recruiting young people to ministry. But also, like creating a discernment program. Our denomination used to come up with structured programs that help the youth explore their calling through retreats, workshop, and spiritual guidance. We don't have those things anymore. We don't have retreats where we take the youth somewhere like in the bush, and we are intentional, like assisting them, workshop, spiritual guidance that can be effective. We don't have such a programs anymore in the church, and those are the things that can assist us in how can we recruit youth to ministry. But all in all, the church need to put their money where their mouth is. The church wants ministers of the word and sacrament, but the church is not prepared to sponsor the ministerial formation. All our formations, 4 formation centers are struggling. North NTS, you go to UOFS, you go to Stellenbosch there. Luckily, Stellenbosch, the Dutch Reformed Church is involved. But with us here at the, I'm speaking about Northern Theological Seminar, we don't have money, and the church is not prepared to sponsor the formation. Then how do you expect youth to be in the formation center if we can't even afford to maintain our formation center? Then the church need to put their money where their mouth is. The church need to come up with the mechanism how to work on funding the so-called ministerial formation. Now, if I can be honest, Lele, my first year, my grandfather is the one who paid for my theological training. The second year, he could not manage to pay for me. Then I had to drop out of school and be at home until, because my grandfather was a Christelike werker, Kamo Irene, NG Kerk Irene, but also NG Kerk Eladas Park, but also working with Irene congregation. Then when he was speaking to some of the white people when they are doing their Christelike werke around Eladas Park, Moreleta, Irene, Harsfontein, all those Pretoria East suburb. One of the white persons said, no, but I will speak to the church council of Moreleta. Then they requested my academic record for my first year. I supplied them with them. And here, Kerk Moreleta Park paid for my theological studies from my second year until I complete with my master's. After that, I've been serving Uniting Reformed Church for this period of 18 years. The Uniting Reformed Church, if they want to be serious about our church and the formation of ministers, they need to put their money on this. We need to come up with strategies of how do we raise funds. Some law, whatever you mentioned, even this whole issue of electronics, they do have some sponsors. Eskom have the money that is allocated for people who, after completing, are going to work under their hospice. Then why can't the church have that kind of drive? We need ministers. And some of the people who want to become ministers, they come from a humble beginning. They can't even afford many things. And you expect them, like university, our students go to University of Pretoria and Stellenbosch and at Bloemfontein, UOFs. And the first year, if you don't have that particular thing, NFSAS, the first day you about 80,000 that you must pay, and you expect me as an individual to do that, but after that I must come and save the church, and the church is nowhere to be found. So the church need to make sure that they put their money where their mouth is and assist in coming up with ways of how to deal with this whole issue. Whether ministry is a calling or employment, traditionally, this thing is a calling and it will remain a calling. Even though this year, Bookholane, we have members of the church like who want to use the secular system in running this church. You know, they want to come up with secular ways of doing things. That's why they will call you that, no, you are an employee. Somebody was fighting more. Your church order says a minister of the word is the chairperson of the church council. How can he become a chairperson of the church council? We are the employer. They want to use the secular understanding of the relationship between employer-employee. But Burundi, ministerial formation, theological education is still a calling, and it will remain a calling. And not everyone will be called into this beautiful work of being a minister of the word. I conclude by saying, Moshe, from Abraham, Moshe, though he born from the Levites family, he was the leader who took the Israelites out of Egypt. But his brother Aaron was a priest, not he was not a priest. Even if when you read, I think it's Numeri chapter 4, Mudimu is telling Moshe that Moshe tell Aaron and his sons, or when they bless the Israelites' children, they must say, Mudimu Moshe blessed the Israelites because Moshe was not a priest, he was a leader. Even Nehemiah and Ezra, Nehemiah is the one who assisted in the rebuilding of the wall, but he was not a religious leader. He was just a leader and a man who loved prayer. But Ezra was a priest, who performed all the priestly duties. Not all the young people or the youth of our church can become ministers, but there are certain ones that they have a calling. And if we identify them, let us assist them in achieving that particular goal of leading us spiritually into our church. Then this ministry will remain a calling. As much as we can put some employment, employer-employee relation, but it remains the calling. And not all of us are called. But those who are called, God used them for the benefit of the whole community. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ralph. I wanted to ask with regard to the requirements, because now we are talking about recruiting. Now, as the church, we identify, or the congregation, we identify, but this young person is not qualifying based on the requirements of the church, because in our church, unfortunately, as you said, we need the theological education. So how can the church or the congregation help this individual in terms of qualifying for the university, because they have to get theological education, and not at just college or at the university.
Okay. I think, Ref, one of the mistakes that we normally do, maybe it is the lack of having a knowledge how things should run. If I come as Moshe Maponya, yes, I passed my matric, but my scores does not allow me to be in a university. You know, like there is this thing, the credit, whatever the scores
Yeah,
that
the
one needs,
APS, yes.
yeah, that one need to have in order to be in a university. The first thing that you do in our church, if you want to become a minister, you apply to the church council. After applying to the church council, they will refer you where you get a form. Then after that, the church council fill that form and recommend you to the presbytery. But then the presbytery need to play that like an oversight role whereby they say, listen, we see your documentation. According to this, your qualification or your standard, your grade 12 certificate, you don't meet the requirement of being accepted in a university. Then for now, we can't recommend you to the formation center, because what normally happens is the presbytery will just say, okay, they send the form to the formation center and a person comes there to be interviewed. And they also make an announcement in the congregation, Moshe Maponya has applied to become a muruti of our church. But when you get to the formation center, they told you, no, but you don't qualify. You must first go and do this and this, sort of a bridging or a postgraduate diploma that can assist you in getting into the system. And there, the students just become discouraged. You know, they come back, they didn't accept me because of 1, 2, 3, 4. And I can tell you, it frustrates. I've seen many students who are frustrated by that. They are in a system, they are called ministry student, but they are not yet on that stage whereby they are now doing the theological modules. They are doing something, and some of them took them long before they can even complete that particular thing. And when it took them long, the years are passing, and at home they are asking you, when are we finishing? And you know exactly that you have not yet started. It has been about 3, 4 years now. When are you finishing? It demoralizes. Hence, we'll see other young people, you know, like they end up backsliding or dropping out of the system. But what should happen is when a person wants to become a ministry student, the minister or the concernant of the congregation need to play that mentor role to see if all the documentation are in order, so that when a student is going for the interviews, everything just go well. There must be explained what is going to happen, but sometimes we don't. We just say this one wants to become a minister. We just throw them into the school without you being a minister of that congregation or a consonant assisting a student with the requirement and all that is needed.
Yeah, thank you. The other point that you did talked about is the salaries. Now we see our church is requesting students or theological students to have masters now, but at the same time the church can afford. And I think it's one of the factors maybe that contribute to the decline of having young people into ministry, because comparing being a minister and being a teacher or whatever, the career, and checking the salaries and the qualification that you have, now you have masters, and now checking the scale of the church. Now this year is 18,000, I think, for full-time, the proponents. But again, taking into consideration the unemployment in our congregations, when we talk about the salary of ministers.
You know, Ref, you are correct. You are correct. The salary of a minister, but also unemployment rate in our congregations. You know, like the COVID has has really done damage to many congregations. Congregations that used to raise funding, many of our members have lost their job, or because of COVID, it has dysfunctionalized many families. And that is the reality. But then the issue here comes, even this minister of the Word and Sacrament, who was recruited at a very young age and they've completed their studies, like even him or her want to raise a family. That is the contestation that we find ourselves in. Like, he's saving the church and there is unemployment in the church, but at the end of the month, he must also provide something on the table in the family. And it's something that one might not have answer for it, but we need, hence maybe one of the things that we need to start working on as congregations. I've just been thinking about it a lot sometimes. Is this whole issue of not relying on the Sunday collection and the monthly contribution of people, but coming up with strategies that can support the funding of the church. Many of our church buildings, they work on Sundays, only on Sundays. And when the CYM is meeting on Wednesday between 6 and 7:30 for 1 hour, 30 minutes, most of our church buildings from Monday until Friday or even Saturday, they are just a white elephant sitting here. The church maybe need to go and relook and how can we utilize even our church buildings to raise funds that can help sustain the congregation. And again, that also talked to the issue of other people's faith, like the 1857 decision, for the sake of those who are weak in spirit. We have people who are weak in spirit in our congregation who will say, no, but we cannot use the church, we cannot allow a certain organization to come and have their function or come and have their meeting in their church, even if they are paying. This is a church. This is a church. And people forget that the church is not a building or a place that we go to. A church is people called on a mission. We are the church. When we are in that building, we are the church. But when we are out, we are not in that. That is just a building. But majority of people will have a problem of utilizing their building to source some income or to make some profit, make an income so that it can sustain them. Then it's high time we need to start looking into that avenues, because indeed there are a high rate of unemployment, but a minister cannot sit in a congregation not getting a salary and say this is a calling. I don't think that
Oh, okay, Mood. And the other thing, talking about the calling and a means of employment, because of the unemployment rate in South Africa, and even when you have a degree and more qualification, you're struggling to get employment. But now, in our church or in a church, went to university, you got your degree. Now, maybe that is where the question comes from, that now you are 100% sure that after completing the theology education, you are going to be employed. And that is why the congregation or the church council, they are using that term that we are the employer, the employee, because now taking at what ministers are doing now, demanding maybe to get their salaries, and they did work for, and also because of the economy, the status of the economy, and also the unemployment rate. That is why the question may be, it still a calling of the means of employment.
yes, I do. I do hear you, but as I've alluded earlier regarding this thing, that for me, this will still remain a calling. God called us, and we are formed, or we are equipped. The congregation allow us that opportunity to be able to execute what we have acquired during our formation days. Then we come here just to serve. And people, hence I'm saying, like now, many of our members, they've employed this secular. They want to put secular things even into the spiritual or a Christian community, a faith-based community. You see, that's one of the problems that we are having as a challenge in the church. By bringing this secular understanding, it makes things to be so difficult, because we want to run the ecclesiological imagination. Like we are in a so-called the church, but we've created smaller churches within the church. And we have identified three. The first one, we said it is a stokvel. The church has become a stokvel. The second one, the church has become a business. The third one, the church has become a theater. And we said the church is a theater because some of the people, they come to worship service to be entertained by the singing, but they don't want to do anything. They just sit in there, entertain, and after that, they give money and they go. Others, they use the church as the business, especially our other brothers from other countries. They see the church as an opportunity to exploit people. The other one is the stokvel, whereby the stokvel, you are part of this congregation. If you don't pay your dues and you die, we don't bury you. Or somehow like some different ecclesiologies or imaginary ecclesiologies, and then that's what make the church to be in crisis, especially also in dealing with the issues of ministerial formation.
Yeah, thank you, Rev, for the information, and also sharing your experiences. Yabo.
No, thanks, Moruti, both our guest and the moderator. Quite an insightful presentation. We are just now going to allow members to engage. But Moruti, maybe before we allow hands, I see ministers of the word already are prepared to make comments. But I think you have answered the question, Moruti Maponya. The church is not intentional. And if really the church was intentional, the church would employ means of, first it's to negotiate even fees and sign up an MOU with the universities to say that we are going to have this number of students and we are organizing a bulk payments in which you will have some discounts from the universities, like they do with the municipality in terms of their programs, the MFMA Act programs and stuff. But two is to say, if we are aware that members are threatened by, are threatened by the salary scales which the ministers are getting, one, the church might as well want to, and for sure one would argue to say it will compromise the quality, or rather the output, but to lower the requirements of being licensed as a minister of the word. Because automatically when you say you are licensing a person on a master's degree, you are obliged to then pay that person a market related salary. And that is why now we find ourselves, our churches are full of part-time ministers, because they need to supplement their income. And as a matter of fact, the quality output of what really these tent maker ministers are giving, they are compromising the voice of the church as a prophetic voice to the world. So also the church is also threatened by this thing of congregations not being able to pay ministers. And I think in many years that we have been in this, plus 30 years, the church should have employed a system that allows ministers to really get paid directly from one office. In this way, you then free Baruti from what we call possible church capture. But I think if then all the close the whatever we call it, the pool to the selected few. But no, thank you very much. I'm going to allow members of this meeting to engage. I've seen the hand of Reverend Raboshaka, but before I take it, Muruti Maponya, tap into this. One said, and speaking of red tapes, one person commented earlier on Facebook while we were marketing the event to say, there's this problem of a stamp. Some documents are kept at by Therese because Muruti Soronso does not like this family, and that person actually qualifies to go to the university. He or she is meeting all the necessary standards, but because of personal issues, and I'm sure you are aware of this problem. It's not that a trend of one presbytery; it's happening across the presbyteries. How do you respond to that? And I will recognize the two hands, Reverend Raboshaka, just after you, Muruti. Please be brief, Reverend Raboshaka and Sister Rachidi. Then from there, I'm going to ask Sister Khonse to assist us with comments from our social media pages. Muruti.
It goes with people, person. There's certain things. There are certain things, Brother Meyahabu, we can't change. Like now we know, as much as I come from Mamelodi, but I've been saving more in Polokwane for quite some time. Even if a person is a minister of the word, or there is this term, if I'm not mistaken, keve in video clergy, like beware the envy of the clergy. Then there are some people about that the requirement is that when you submit the forms of the student, there is a section where it says they must be stamped. But you as a minister, after filling whatever, you don't put a stamp and you submit those forms without the stamp. The student does not have a problem. It means you as a minister, you are the ones who have a problem, because you know that at the school, they need these forms with the stamp. Then I can't put a blanket approach to all of this and say all ministers are like that, but we have heard of issues of something like that, somebody doing or excluding somebody deliberately, or is envious of somebody to go to school. I think I will just stop there. It goes with people.
Thank you, Muruti. Reverend Raboshaka, in a minute.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. Thank you very much. I just want to start by commenting that the people who organized this session, it was really very fruitful and it's going to help us. I just want to mention two things briefly. One, that one of the things that we normally don't see on the other side after training is that you can use theological training to explore your other endeavors. You don't have to be ordained minister. Don't have to do the ordained ministry. You can still do ministry without being ordained, but do a profitable and a Christian work in the church. That is important. Number two, that I want to mention is that it's my wish and my prayer that 80% of the people who attended this session must apply. Tegis is open. UNISA is open in September. I'm not sure about Bloemfontein, but I'm calling upon that we should have them. Why do I say this? This is not a recruitment drive per se. It is an awareness that people are scared to lead the church at a different platform, but they need to be equipped theologically. Thank you, Chairperson, and congratulations to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Muruti Raboshaka. Now, Muruti, hence maybe the question of this being a calling then comes, where 80% of members attending this are going to register for theology. But I understand. I understand. We are going to apply, and I just want to say, Brother Pule, don't wait for o fitlhe o ba 40 years monna, so that you to create recognition of prior learning. Start now. Sister Rahadi Marachid, in a minute, and then Khonsi will assist us with online comments.
Greetings, beloved, in the mighty name of our soon coming King Jesus. Amen. Yeah, it's difficult to speak when you're already in ministry, but this is the session of the youth. Mine, I think what I've heard, when you're on the ground with young minds and as well being in ministry, I think Muruti, with the highest qualification that we have said, I mean, just one bar from level 10, that's our highest qualification. And yet we are faced that, I don't know, maybe we stay for too long at school and get frustrated that by the time we get into ministry, we are forgetting that we are called. Our ministers, we have left what we saw in our forefathers who recruited us, and we could see the spirituality and the calling. Case in point, our conflict resolution method. It's like with all the modules that we have studied and all the qualifications, we have learned nothing about conflict resolution. We cannot even resolve our own peer-to-peer colleagues' conflicts. How can we then expect these young minds that are so problematic to come and join the ministry? Can you imagine you are young, you are volatile, and yet you are now becoming a minister and you come into a volatile society? For some of us, now for me, it's very concerning. You come into this male dominant industry, you thought that's the only thing you're going to deal with, but you're coming to a divided church. You're coming to a church that's supposed to be teaching people how to sit down on a round table and resolve these issues. The reason why we are not recruiting people is because we ourselves highly qualified. It's like this, the Rangwan, yeah. It's like the higher we got qualified, the higher we became superior, pompous, and self-validated. I think maybe what we need to reflect on ourselves is that as much as we want to recruit young people are also looking at us. What examples are we setting? Are our qualifications and our knowledge not getting in the way of ministry? How many churches have we built? How much have we developed? Have we just gone and acquired knowledge to enable us to go and contribute into academia? I think the ministers that I see are doing well. I don't want to lie, with their masters are the ones in academia. Any other minister who's not in academia, now I see poorer, the poorest minister that I've ever seen in my generation are the ones with masters right now. Ministers, after they leave the seminary, they don't even know what to do other than being called. Others are called in the Free State. They are just frustrated by even congregations. That is just my view. I think ministry has just become something very unattractive. But by God's grace, we shall not give up. The same way we are waiting for the church to be united, let us also hope one day we will recruit and become a greater church again. Thank you, Maruti.
No, thanks, Marachidi. I think you said a mouthful. One Muruti once said, actually, Muruti Maponya, are you don't want to go to a congregation month and they come kanku. But Muruti harasebetsa hantle marenku kiena. In this economy, really, it becomes very frustrating. But also, I think it's how we view church. I think we are not taught to give. We still rely on the system of dependency, where we were really assisted by the Dutch Reformed, and we haven't yet come to a mind of understanding how the church operates, and that the church is also operating in a normal world. You call it a secular world, where money speaks, and without money you can't even convince anyone. I mean, you can't preach on an empty stomach. Sister Khonse, perhaps you need to assist us with comments from either YouTube, Facebook, or on this platform. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. Good evening, Chair. Good evening, Baruti, and everyone on the call. So the first question, it's not much of a question, but rather a comment from Facebook from Ngobo, it says, the turn-off is this 7 years. Secondly, it is very expensive to study, and there is very few congregations who is able to pay ministers according to the General Synod. And we also have a question or more of a comment on our chat from Sister Merang Kapola. It reads as follows: the church is in a crisis of having more than 50% of congregants without minister. Is there current a conversation at regional synod or general synod to come up with an alternative plan for the sake of pure doctrine sermon reaching the members? There was a decision some years ago to forgo the evangelist body within the church. A further vacuum was created by this. One can also ask whether research, honors, and MA papers contribute to the master's ability to lead a congregation. And the other comment is there have been instances where ministry students have completed their masters but delay in getting license. What could be the cause for this? And we also have another one from Balesa, which reads, how can the church foster a sense of belonging amongst youth in theology ministry? So I think, Chair, through you, we can allow for these questions to be answered. We still have 2 more.
Moruti Bookholane, Moruti Maponya. You might want to tap on some of these comments and questions. Your mic is, you are muted, Ruth. Thank you.
Yeah, I hear. Until now, I'm not sure about the first one. If there is any a conversation that is currently taking place within our regional synod or general synod, coming up with a plan for this issue that we are talking about. I don't think there is something that I'm aware of that the church is doing beside the so-called decision 107 of the general synod, which allow like the people who are 50 plus and have been in ministry, they've got a degree, they've got Greek and Hebrew, to be allowed licensing so that they can go to field. That is the only thing that that I know. The issue of evangelist, you should remember that the issue of evangelist has to do with the colonial past and the apartheid past, where ministers felt that during those days, black people were not allowed to become ministers of the word and sacrament. They can't give sacrament. They were just evangelists, just to preach. And the white minister will be the one doing the sacrament and consecration of marriage and whatever. Then hence it was were to do away with this whole issue of evangelist. But then if it comes as a discussion that moving forward, what can we do in relation? I hear other churches, they've got this thing they call bareri, like they go for a certain training just to assist so that there is no vacuum in the church. But it's something that can be done or as a conversation moving forward. Yes, indeed, research honors and masters, they do contribute to ministers' ability to lead a congregation. You know, when you do things that you learn, skills that you acquire, that will assist you in how to approach the congregation. Because when doing research, you do research with live people or life situations, and you try to understand what is happening. And at given time, one will always go back to their research and say, no, this is what didn't happen. But again, Brother Mehaba, I will say this thing again, not only in ministerial formation and the church, in all aspects of life. If like you can be a minister with honors You can be a lawyer with doctorate, but you only find out that you are just nonsensical. But to find somebody there with honors or even a degree, but the way they conduct themselves according to their calling or wherever they are. We have nurses. People will say nurses are not good, whatever, but if you can sleep in a hospital, you see some nurses who are doing like across the world, like there are those kind of things that are happening. Fostering a sense of belonging is just like we just need to be people, practice the spirit of Ubuntu, and see how can we work together towards the shalom. I think, yeah, that's what I can say on these questions. Thank you.
Yeah, Maruti, while we are going to recognize a hand, Sister Khonse, just hold there. I want Maruti Bookholane to check on the prediction of the church in the next 10 years, the wave of succession and churches that are, increasing rapidly. Where I want you to give us, where is URCSA in the next 10 years, especially that we have seen, and Maruti Maponya, you have said, the church has not employed systems as yet that young people are interested in coming in. And that trend, Maruti, it's continuous. Fortunately, the central executive was having a meeting somewhere in Tshwane. And I think what then happens in Tshwane is that there are young people there and they have employed resolve within our. So is the church in the next 10 years? Sister Boitumelo, Maruti. Maruti. Okay. While Maruti she's struggling, Sister Khonse, just from your online platform.
Thabang. Sorry, BBT.
Okay,
Born before technology. I greet you all in the wonderful name of our Lord Jesus Christ. It's an honor to be part of this conversation. There's a few things that I would want to highlight, Mr. Chairperson. Re lebohela le insight ya Moruti Maponya le Moruti Bookholane. When one served in the Coratorium donkey years ago, we had talked to an issue of youth ministry, to say the church can always have theological candidates that will only be dealing with youth ministry. The church can have a theological candidate that only talks to church development. And I think if we could go back to those aspects that di tlo thusa go godisa kereke ya rona in a very fast manner, because of kereke ya rona, we are currently moving, but an element of stagnant. We do not have developers anymore. We do not have youth ministers that which would become mentors to potential theological candidates. So those are the things telling Kore. Personally, I believe that if we could go back to those, we will be in a situation whereby kereke ya rona ya hola, and probably in the next 10 years, as the chairperson has alluded, that we might still have church there, and bo stagnant ba rona bo tla ba limited. Thank you. I hope I was audible.
You were very. Thank you, Maruti. Sister Khonse.
Thank you so much, Chair. The question from Obakeng reads as follows. Greeting, Berith. On the question of mentorship, I have a concern that we need to train ministers. I doubt if they know what is expected of them. Mentorship requires a number of skills and qualities which were not imparted to minister during their theological training. And we also have a comment, I think it's from Yeah, I think I did read this one. Then I'll just go back to the chat. We also have a question from Brother Romeo. It reads as follows: why can't URCSA adopt the model that the NGKA used in terms of acquiring funds? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Khonse. Moderator, guest.
Thanks. I think on the issue, sorry man, this thing just kicked me out. I don't know what was happening, but I'm back now. On the issue of mentorship, I think Duchenne is correct. Reverend Duchenne is correct in saying we need ministers to be trained, because at times they are doing something that maybe they are not clued up what is it that is needed. Hence, we'll find there is a contestation among a ministry student and a minister because of this they must do. I think on that one is correct. The issue here, with even the second question about raising fund, the issue here is simple. The church needs to be intentional. The church needs to start to having a conversation regarding the formation center. The church needs to start acting and speaking more about how to go about the issue of ministerial formation. Some of us ministers, after licensed and getting a call in a congregation, I become comfortable. I sit in a congregation, and I don't know want to go back again to the formation center and see what is it that we can do in making it better compared to the way we were during our time. But until such time, Brother Chair, if the church is not intentional about engaging critically on the issues of formation center, we can come up with all these different ideas, whatever, but they are not going to work because we are not intentional in what we want to do. We are going to spend most of our time talking about this infight that are happening in church, and sometimes it seems as if they make us happy that people are fighting or we are fighting in the church, rather than focusing on what is important. Then now we're saying, maybe as CYM, when you go to your Congress, you can make that submission to the synod that, listen, we think it is high time. We just need to talk about this whole issue of ministerial formation. Let me tell you a very simple issue. We have four. I think we have four formation centers. But the last time these four formation centers of URCSA, under the umbrella of one curriculum, they've met, I think it's about 9 or 10 years ago at Dinsentram. But each and every year, these formation centers, they only meet, the only people who meet are the General Synod representatives. But we don't get a chance of sitting together as the four formation center of URCSA, just to pave a way of, or even bringing students together. Like the Cape student, the UF student, like the North student, they don't normally meet. But we are saying we are one church and fostering for one formation. Then it's also, that thing also show a track. Then until such time, where we are intentional as a church and say we really need to build a strong formation, whether we are in the NTS or UFs or Stellenbosch or Namibia, but whatever we are doing, we know that we're doing quality formation with us being intentional. Then without being intentional, we're not going to achieve anything.
No, thanks, Muruti. Muruti Thabang, Bookholane, maybe tap into what I've just asked. We are faced with a lot of socio-economical challenge, poverty, inequality, and so forth. And like I said, considering the present distress, where is the church? Because I'm saying this because part of a person choosing a career, you need to see that career path growing in the future generations. I mean, now when you choose a career, you also take note of that we are now in the AI world. If whatever that you are doing, it's not going to be replaced by AI. But like now we are looking at factors. Fortunately, the church will never be replaced by AI. I stand to be corrected. But we have pressing factors that are really threatening the survival of ministry. What is your comment on that, Mruti?
Yeah. It's a very important question, and also, unfortunately, what we are facing now is the church. And in 10 years, I'm going to make an example, Free State. In the next coming 10 years, we want to have what we call big congregations. If I can, the calling, and also is going to affect and frustrate them because now what are you going to do with your theology degree without having a congregation or the congregation that can call you? So in the next 10 years, if now as the church you are not addressing the challenges that we are having, the one of the conflicts, and also trying to accommodate our youth, because you can see that they are living in this fast evolving world of the digital connectivities, and our church, it is not moving into that direction. We want to stick to the tradition, to say we are used to do like as we are, and we can't allow youth to worship the or to accommodate them, and also the language, because you'll find your son is at English speaking school. Now here in the congregation, re bua Sesotho, moruti ra ka Sesotho. And now that on its own also is going to contribute also if we are not accommodating those children, or also people who are not speaking our language. So it's going to be a challenge. I don't want to say, yeah, there will be a church in the next coming years, but not the same one as we are having now, unless we address and also make sure that we accommodate our youth in there, so that they cannot move from URCSA to charismatic churches, because we see a lot now people are moving from URCSA to charismatic churches because they feel they are not accommodated in our church, because our church ba tla o bolella hore kgale re etsa tjena or re sebetsa ka tradition ya rona e re tjena, and it is not helping. Because now in the next coming 10 years, ha re tlo ba le batho ka hara kereke.
Yeah, Moruti, we colleagues, we are just going for wrap up. It's 15 minutes after the hour 8. We had a very beautiful conversation. We are just going to wrap up. And I know from the thing, I'm not sure, Moruti, did we answer the comment from, or rather question from Mohabi? Romeo, which read, why can't URCSA adopt the model that the NG Kerk used in their terms of acquiring funds? Did we touch on it?
Yes, I think when I was presenting, I did touch on it and saying recently some of our church buildings, we use them on Sundays, but the NG Kerk, I think what they did in the past, they make sure that they invest in buildings, and they use those buildings to generate income through the buildings. Then with our history where we come from, many congregations, they don't have many buildings that they can use to rent them out.
Mrs. Matobe.
in generating income. But most of the congregations that we have, they do have a what we call a building that they use for worship. Then in answering the colleague here is that their method was to acquire buildings or land and use that land for work for the church. I was attending a 40th birthday of a colleague of mine somewhere in Palabora. And when we were in that session, for the first time I heard a pastor, a Pentecostal charismatic pastor, saying something which spoke to me. He said to the people in that church building, look at your yard. You've got a very big yard. Here's the church building. Here is parking. But these other hectares of land, it makes it more like even there are snakes and whatever. Why can't you plow something there? But one problem that we have as Black people, you want people to see you carrying a ShopRite or a Woolworths, Woolworths, or else you've got the land where you can plow your own tomatoes. Then what the NHA did, they use land, they use building to acquire funding. Some of our church buildings here, they have a land where we can plow things and make things happen for us. We can't be sitting here with the church building only operating on Sundays, but during the week, there are people who want to hold meetings, they want to do this and this, they want to come for the rehearsal. Some choirs, they don't have a place, they want to come for rehearsal, we'll pay you 50 Rand per rehearsal. No, this is for the church. We only come here on Sunday to worship God. What is happening with that building? Then the NHA was intentional. They get buildings, they get land to work on those land so that they can bring money in it. We need to change our strategy.
Thank you, Moruti. Sister Khonse, just those two comments from the chat platform, the Google Meet chat platform from Precious and Tatuli. Then we wrap up.
Okay, cool. From Precious, it reads as follows. The church should foster open conversations about theological studies, as it is clearly becoming a scarce skill. Make theological discussions relatable by connecting them to contemporary issues. By so doing, they will be helping young people see the relevance of theology and pursue beats in the field. The conversation should address topics that are theologically based and in the interest of youth, such as faith in the modern society, ethics, social justice, and relationships. And the last comment from Tato, it reads as follows. Greetings to you all. I want to answer to the topic of today, which is recruitment of the young in theological ministry. Firstly, authentic foster relationship, such as mentorship programs and opportunities for growth and theological education. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think we both relate to the submission by Precious and Tato. Moruti, you would want to just give a closing statement in a minute. Moruti guest and Moruti moderator, a minute each.
No, I think enough from my side. Thank you very much for inviting me for this session. But I also want to urge you, CYM. Every generation has a youth, and they normally refer to them as young lions. You have the will, and you have the know-how. Sometimes when you meet these issues that we've been raising for the past weeks, you must create a booklet and submit it to the church and say, as the young people of this church, we believe this needs to happen, and we take it from there.
Oh, thanks, Moruti. Thank you. Moruti, Bookholane.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I want also to thank you for the opportunity and invitation to discuss this important topic. And I also hope and believe that CYM will continue to discuss this and in their meetings and perhaps submit their proposal with strategies to help the church next year during the years, because it is clear that we really need to address this shortage, and also to recruit, and also making sure that when recruiting, the church will also assist the students while studying in terms of funding and support. So thank you, thank you so much uh, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Baruti. I'm just going to extend this my hand to Brother Edward. Is he here? Brother Edward Ramadie to just give us a vote of thanks and also announcements.
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Chair, for giving me this opportunity to do the vote of thanks as well as the announcements. Firstly, I would like to thank the Almighty Jesus Christ for allowing us this opportunity to meet here today to discuss this important topic that we have discussed today. Secondly, to our guest, Ntate Moruti Bookholane le Ntate Moruti Moshe, we thank you for your insights, all the information that you have shared with us. I think that it will benefit the church as well as the youth of URCSA in the CYM. We have learned a lot from you, leadership of the church. Thank you very much. Le ka mosho ha re kopa gore le re thuse ka such topics, kopa le buleng dipelo tsa lona, le buleng meepo ya lona gore le tlo re thusa ka information eo. We really appreciate it. Modimo a le tlhonolofatse hakalo. Thank you very much. As we are moving to our announcements, Brother Chairperson, on the 27th of May, we'll be having our 7th online conversation. The same conversation as this one, but we'll be having a different topic there by the church's relevance in a society threatened by immorality. The church's relevance in a society threatened by immorality. We'll be having the moderator there, external moderator. We have invited an external person there, not from our church. Pastor T. Savasa will be our moderator there. And then we have invited the victims that are more like relevant to this topic, the guests, whereby we'll be engaging with them on this topic. So it is important that members of the CYM, members of the URCSA, they're also invited to join this important conversation as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think I've covered everything. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brother Pule. On next week conversations, brothers and sisters, Pastor Tandanani Sabasa, she's coordinator of the South African Council of Churches. She's from the AFM, but also, as much as we are preaching church, as much as there are people who got hurt in the process of congregating. Some were hurt by the church, some were hurt by our ministers, and you see all of these people on podcasts having their stories to share. So we are just going to have that conversation with them. So the identity of the person, we keep it for now closed within our cupboards. We will reveal that person very soon as the conversation approaches. We just also had a successful central executive meeting, which said on the 9th to the 11th of May in URCSA Tshwane, and part of the meeting resolved that on the 29th we are having, from the 28th we will be having a golf day 30 years golf day. 29 we'll have panel discussion dinner. It is more likely of these discussions, but in person. And then on a Sunday, we'll have a spiritual convention where all 7 regions will be gathered, worshiping, just thanking God for the grace, growth, and glory of this ministry. It's a legacy of faithfulness across generations, brothers and sisters. We take this opportunity to thank you. May the good Lord bless you. But we also want to extend our words of appreciation, Brother Pule, to our technical support team, and still extend a hand to say, members of the CYM who are available, one must stress this point so that it gets across. Members of the CYM who are available to assist us in terms of moderating, in terms of assisting us, please reach out so that you can be part of these celebrations. We thank you, colleagues. Have yourself a very good night, but there's no way we can close the meeting of the church without a prayer. Now I see Sister Karabo Mahoba, a member of URCSA Tshwane Presbytery from URCSA Centurion. My dear sister, please close with a word of prayer as we are about to sleep.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Mayor Habo. Let's close our eyes and pray.
Brother Chairperson, before you pray. I'm joking. Pray.
Brother Chairperson, Heavenly Father, thank you for blessing us in this session. Thank you for being with us this evening, Father. And as we close this session, we ask that you bless each and every person here. May your grace and peace be with them and everything that they do, guiding them through the week ahead. And may you feel your presence in every moment, Heavenly Father. May these conversations make an impact in our ministry and in our church, Heavenly Father. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Amen. Amen.